Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and this video is a rules refresher for the Guardians of the Council module in the Classic Expansion Pack for Anachrony. Let's get rolling. So I am set up to teach you how to play the Guardians of the Council module from the Anachrony Classic expansion. And so as in my other rules refresher videos, I'm going to follow a particular format. So after this introduction, I'll give you a brief overview of what it is this module adds. Then I'll talk about compatibility. Can you play this module with other modules? Then I will go into the setup changes, and then I'll get really into the details on everything you need to know when actually playing and the different mechanics of how everything works. And finally, I'll have a section on what you need to know for solo mode specifically, and then I'll just wrap it all up. And so as usual, you can find those chapter markers if you'd like to jump to a specific spot. But let's jump into it now with the overview. So what this module is doing is it's giving you this sideboard here and these extra minis, and the module does come with minis, but if you don't have the rest of the minis to play with, for all the other exosuits in the game, it also does come with the cardboard punch-out versions, and you're free to use those as well. But basically, these 6 advanced exosuits are given to the World Council from an alternate timeline, and you can claim them and use them as your own to do cool stuff. So that's it in a nutshell. So let's talk next about compatibility. The Guardians of the Council module is mostly compatible with everything, with a couple of notable exceptions. One, as usual, if you're playing solo, it's compatible with Chronosis, but not with the Chronobot. And then secondly, and probably most importantly, Guardians of the Council is not compatible with the Fractures of Time expansion. And I've got to imagine that because some of the mechanics of the Guardians, which we'll get into in a moment, combined with blinking, probably just totally break the game, and I bet would make it go really, really long. So those two modules, the main Fractures of Time module and Guardians of the Council, are not supported if you combine them. That being said, there's nothing stopping you from house ruling it if that's something you really want to try. My suggestion would just be Guardians cannot blink. Guardians being these suits here. If you acquire any of these suits, use them as the Guardians of the Council module explains, but no matter what you do with them, they're not allowed to blink. That would be my advice. And I think that would still be a little bit game breaking, but I'm sure you can get away with it if you thought it would be fun. So now let's talk about setup. And setup's fairly easy for this one. This is one of the more straightforward modules to learn, in my opinion. So you're going to need this sideboard here, this Guardian sideboard, as well as the 6 exosuits. Again, whether you're using the minis or the cardboard punch-outs, you'll need all 6 suits, and you place them on the hex spaces. In any particular order, all these hex spaces are the same. And then if you are playing multiplayer, there is a Most Guardians endgame condition card that you can add into the stack. And you can use that whether you are randomly drawing or if you are doing a draft variant for the endgame conditions. You can include that either way. And then if you are playing solo, there's also a Guardians solo objective card that you can add for Chronosis, which would give you 1, 2, or 4 victory points if you have 2, 4, or 5 Guardians at the end of the game, respectively. In addition to that, if you are playing a 2-player game, and that would be either, solo against the Chronosis or, 2 human opponents against each other, you must cover up this second World Council space. It is not available at all. And that's it. That's the setup. Pretty simple. So next, let's get into the main section, the details of how this module works and what all the rules are. So let's go ahead and throw a exosuit here on my board, and we will start in the action phase. So you've got a World Council hex available here. If you're playing 3 or 4 players, you'll have a second space as well. So I guess I'll remove this blocker for just a moment, and we'll assume we're playing a 3-player game. You may, on your turn, put a worker in one of your suits and send them to either of these World Council spaces. And again, if you send them to this one, you become the first player. That is not the case here, but it costs 1 less water. And as normal, after you pay the cost and go to one of those spaces, you can take one of these 3 capital actions, either research, recruit, or construct, so long as all of the spots are filled, as long as there are no available spots for that action. if there is at least, as usual, one space available on each action, then this would only get you the first player, and this would do nothing as far as these three world capital actions are concerned. But after you take your action, and you're on one of these World Council spaces, you may then optionally gain any one of those guardians. And to be clear, just want to make sure that the phrasing is good here. You can go to one of these, just like you can go here and become the first player, even without taking one of these actions. You can go to either of these spaces. If you're here, still become first player if you choose. And then even if you take none of these actions, you can still gain a guardian. It's just that if you are going to take an action, take the action first, then you may optionally gain a guardian. So to gain a guardian, you're just going to take your path marker and place it on the guardian that you want. And you can see there are spaces here and there are spaces back there. So I might take this one right here. And then you pay the cost that's there and then gain the guardian to your supply. And that's important. The guardian does not come straight to your board. It's not available to use right now, but it is in your supply. We'll come back to that in a minute, but let's talk about the cost. So the 6 guardians all have one thing in common when it comes to their cost. You will permanently lose a worker. Now it's got the symbol on it that generally means your worker dies, but thematically, you're giving up your worker to have them permanently remote pilot this guardian suit. That'll make even more sense in a minute. But then in addition to losing a worker, each of these spaces also has another cost. So let's just go through them left to right. So this one, you're going to lose a worker and spend a neutronium. Lose a worker and spend 2 of any of your standard resources. Lose a worker, spend 4 water. Lose a worker and spend a breakthrough tile. This one is lose 2 workers. And this one is lose a worker, spend an energy core, and gain a paradox. And again, paradoxes go here, not gain an anomaly, just gain a paradox token, which may gain you an anomaly. And then after you've paid the cost, you place your path marker on the appropriate spot, take the guardian, put it in your supply, and that path marker will stay there for the rest of the game. This is your guardian now. Nobody else can ever claim it. And so that means if you or anyone else wants another guardian later, you will have to choose one of the other costs. That cost won't be available again. It's already been paid. So that's how you gain a guardian. Now let's back up a little bit and go to the power-up phase. So when you're in the power-up phase, you've normally got your 6 suits for your path. And now in your supply, you may also have 1 or more guardians if you've acquired them up to this point. So when you go to power up your suits, you can power up guardians exactly the same way as you power up your own suits. So these spaces, typically here, I'm using the A side here. So this is the symmetrical side. So this is sort of standard costs. These 3 spaces are free, and then these 3 spaces cost 1 energy core. If your cost is different, the cost is different, but it doesn't matter if you're using one of your path suits or the guardian suits, you pay the cost the same way. And you can power these up in any order. I might want to use all 6 of these and not use the guardian at all. I don't know why I do that, but I might want to. Or you can, use the guardian first. It doesn't really matter. Can do this, spend this cost, but you can mix and match however you want. It's just 1 suit per hex. Now, importantly, you've got typically 6 available hexes here, and now you may have more than 6 suits. So in the power up phase, the maximum number of suits you can power up is 6, and that is pre-impact. If we are post-impact, typically you're going to block 2 spaces, and then the most number of suits you can power up in the power up phase is 4 suits. But that doesn't mean you're limited to only using that number of suits during the action phase. So let's say we're post-impact here. I've got 4 slots available, and I power up these 4 standard exosuits, and I've got this guardian over here on the side. If I have, say, the Super Project Uranium cores, which allows you as a free action to gain a powered up exosuit, maybe I take an action and use this one, and then later I take this free action, I can power up either my regular suits or my guardian suits, whatever's in my supply, and place it on an available spot. And importantly, if we're post-impact like this and you only have 4 slots, these blocks are blocking you from powering up suits, not from placing suits on the spots. So as the first action for the round, maybe I've powered up 4 suits, I can take a free action and take a suit from my supply and put it on one of these spaces. These spaces are just stopping me from powering up and from gaining water. All right, so let's run through a quick scenario, pre-impact as well. So if we had 6 slots available and I've got my suits like this, I would not be able to take this uranium core action right now because I have no more slots to place this suit. But I could, use a suit and then on another turn, gain another suit into that empty spot that way. So there are other ways to gain powered up exosuits besides uranium cores, but this principle applies to all of those different methods. All right, so now let's talk about what the Guardian suits actually do, why you'd want to power them up, what makes them different. Well, I'm assuming you know how all the regular suits work. A Guardian suit is different because you have already sacrificed a worker to permanently remotely power the suit. Therefore, the suit does not need a worker in it. I know, I kind of feel like I buried the lead on that one. So these are super cool. So you don't put a worker, even though they've got like a worker slot in the top, you never put a worker in a Guardian suit. You just take the empty suit, you put it wherever you want it, and then you treat that suit as if it had a genius in it. So if I went to the mines here, I guess it wouldn't matter. If I went to take the construct action, I would get the 1 titanium discount. If I went to do a recruit action, I could recruit geniuses. And if I wanted to, I could take the breakthrough action as well. I could also send the suit up here and gain 4 water, or I could trade with the nomads as if I were an admin, because the suit is always treated like a genius. And of course, the Guardian can go to these World Council hexes and treat them like a normal World Council hex, where if you go here, you could still be the first player. If all these spots are occupied for a particular World Capital action, you can take that action as a genius, and you can gain another Guardian if you want to pay the cost. So that's all pretty cool, but if that wasn't enough, the Guardian has one other action that only the Guardian can take, and that is you can send them back to the board, to the space where you have your path marker, and when you go there, you pay 1 water, and it's like taking a World Capital action, with the important difference that all of the slots do not need to be full. So you can take your Guardian, send it here with no worker in it, of course, and then take one of these actions by just paying 1 water, regardless of whether there's available spots or not. Now again, you can only do this using a spot where you have your path marker. If somebody else has also got a Guardian and they've got their path marker there, you cannot go to their spot, and vice versa. So only you have access to that spot. And then during the cleanup phase, when it's time to retrieve all your workers, if you've got Guardians out here on the board, you just bring them back to the supply. And if you've got them up here on this board, again, you bring them back to the supply. And you should just, when you're done, each player should have as many Guardians in the supply as matches the number of path markers they've got there up there on the Guardian board. So that's why those path markers stay there throughout the game. You place it there permanently so you know how many Guardians you should have. And that's really it. So now I'm going to change gears here and talk about the solo mode. All right, so let's go over these solo mode rules. So I've got the Chronosis board here. On the 3 spot, we've got action tile C03, which is gain an energy core. On the 1 action tile spot, we have tile C02, which is gain 2 victory points. And then on the 2 action tile spot, we're using action tile C11. And let's talk about how this works real quick, because it has this auto leap function on both sides by default. And let's place this number 3 action token right there where it starts. So if we're playing a normal game of solo Anachrony against the Chronosis, and I roll a 3 right now, the Chronosis is going to take a construct action and build a life support. And then after that action's done, the token advances. Okay, next time that I roll a 3 now, the Chronosis is going to try and take a time travel action. Maybe they're successful, maybe they're not. After that, you advance the token and it lands here. And this spot has the auto leap icon. So what that means is now, as soon as this token is advanced here, you take this action, you do what's on this tile immediately, and then advance it again. So basically, when you're here, if you roll a 3 for Chronosis, you're going to take this action, and then you're going to take this action, and then advance again, all as one turn. So this is the Acquire Guardian action, and this is the A side. On the B side, you have the Acquire Guardian action plus gain 2 victory points. So you can use the other side of this tile if you want to make it a little bit trickier or increase the difficulty. But let's just look at the A side for now. So that is the Acquire Guardian action. And let's just borrow from my exosuits right now. Let's say this one belongs to Chronosis. I'll just take this marker off of here. When you have to perform this Acquire Guardian action, the first thing you're going to try and do is have the Chronosis, and of course this spot is blocked. The Chronosis is going to try and place an exosuit on this space if possible. If that is possible, then first of all, Chronosis becomes the first player, and then second, they will acquire the leftmost suit to their supply, and you go ahead and mark it with one of Chronosis's path markers, and they pay no additional cost. They just place their exosuit here, gain a guardian to the supply. Now, if this spot is no longer available, let's go back to pretending again that this is my exosuit now. So say I've taken this action. This is obviously blocked. It's Chronosis' turn. If this spot is not available and Chronosis wants to take this acquire guardian action, then they do not need a suit and they do not place a suit. Instead, they then take the leftmost available suit, again, marking it with a path marker. Let's just do that for now. And then it spends one worker. So first it'll grab whichever worker type it has the most of, and then if there's a tie, the tiebreaker is move your way up from bottom to top here. So if there's a tie, spend a scientist. If not a scientist, then an engineer. If not an engineer, then an administrator. And then finally would be a genius. Now there's two caveats to all this. One, if the Chronosis does not have any workers to pay, it's a failed action, and then just gain one victory point and advance the token like normal. The second caveat is if it is post-impact. So if we are after the impact, then it will always be a failed action and Chronosis will gain a victory point and advance the token. Chronosis will not gain any guardian suits after the impact. So now when you're in the power-up phase with Chronosis, Chronosis will power up as many guardians as it can first, and then it'll power up its own exosuits. So if we're, say, pre-impact right now, let's flip a tile back over. Just for consistency. If we say we're pre-impact and it's time for Chronosis to power up and they have maybe say this one suit and these two suits, pre-impact they're going to start by powering up 3 suits. They will power up those 2 first and then this, assuming they have no other guardians, and then you'll draw from the bag. And in this scenario, say if Chronosis had 4 guardians, you would power up 3 and then draw from the bag, and if you were going to power up a 4th, you would start with the next guardian, and if you needed to power up a 5th or a 6th, then you would start going to the other exosuit tokens for Chronosis. Now, during the action phase, when Chronosis is placing its exosuits out onto the board to take actions, it will place its guardians last. It will reserve those. It will start with just its regular suits if it has any of those. And then, if it ever wants to take this research or recruit or construct action and it has no other way to do it, it will then place a guardian on one of its own marked guardian spaces up on that guardian board to take the action that way. And if it does so, then, again, it's not a failed action and it just performs the action as normal and then retrieves its own suits to the supply during the cleanup phase as normal. So then if you want to increase the difficulty in the solo mode, again, you can flip this action tile here over to the B side. That's one option. You can also, if you are after the impact, normally this becomes a failed action, but it can acquire 2 victory points instead of 1 post-impact. That's another way to increase the difficulty. And thirdly, the rulebook suggests if you want to make it harder, that Chronosis can start the game with 1 guardian. And that's what you need to know for the solo mode. So that is everything you need to know to play the Guardians of the Council expansion for Anachrony. Personally, it's one of my favorite ones. I think it's a really cool expansion. It's just fun to play with. And if you'd like to see it in action, I will release at the same time as this video a solo playthrough where I'm going to play against Chronosis using this Guardians of the Council expansion. So you can check that out as well. I'll put a link at the end of this video. So if you like this sort of content, make sure you leave a like so that I know it. And if you don't want to miss future content like this, because I am going through all the Anachrony modules like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to get you an answer. And if you want to throw me a couple bucks, don't forget, you can always head over to my coffee page, ko-fi. There's a link in the description. That is always appreciated and it allows me to keep making this sort of content. But that is it for this rules refresher video. I'm going to do my playthrough now. I'm super excited for it. I hope to see you there. And if not, have an awesome week and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching Table for One.